Greetings, friends, and welcome to this spooktacular edition of Atheism 101. In the spirit of the Great Pumpkin, I shall be resurrecting an old opponent's arguments from the dead. That's right, tremble and behold the return of Nurse Ack. Last time on Atheism 101, we learned the following astounding revelation that turns all of modern biology on its head.
So you, as a nurse who has studied human anatomy and biology, are claiming that the entirety of human civilization can arise from a single incestuous breeding pair.
Yes.
That's right. This evening we're dealing with incest, a watery firmament, undead plants, and much more. Continue watching, brave viewer, if you dare, but be warned. Things are about to get scary stupid in here. Let's begin with this haunting tale of biblical incest.
When God created Adam and Eve, they were genetically perfect. The reason that incest is bad is because as we have been devolving over time, especially since the flood, we have more errors in our DNA, and those errors are magnified when we breed with people with similar errors as us.
That's right, friends. We humans are devolving, which means that unlike Cain and Abel, we can no longer copulate with our parents without consequence because we are not genetically perfect like our original ancestors. Pity. If mankind had just behaved itself and didn't bring a cursed flood on it as recompense for its wickedness, our bloodline would have remained pure and we could still have swingin' family nights to this day. Oh well, we were wicked, so no more incest for us. Go on about these perfect specimens.
Adam and Eve were made genetically perfect, so therefore their children breeding with each other did not cause the problems that they do now, which is why we find and feel that disgust with it now, which is appropriate. I mean, I'm not saying that incest is good now, but I'm saying the reason it worked back then is the genetic errors were not in existence at that time.
Okay, so Adam and Eve were genetically perfect, and apparently you can fuck your sister when you're perfect, which is why their children, according to Genesis 5, were able to live for hundreds of years and give birth to normal-ass kids instead of rejects from the hills have eyes. Sadly, biology, anthropology, and archaeology tell a different tale. But you may be surprised to learn that the problems with incest don't occur on the genetic level. Birth deformities are caused by UV lights.
Before the flood, it broke the water covering that surrounded the earth that filtered the UV lights, and the increased UV radiation accelerated the demise of our DNA. So that's why after the flood, our lifespans drastically decreased, and also incest became outlawed by God himself. And it's even noted in the Bible when it stopped being okay.
Friends, we are gathered here today to witness the demise of our DNA. Thanks to human sinfulness, the protective water coating that covered the earth was destroyed and doomed humanity to death by drowning, and in so doing exposed us to UV radiation that led to incest being the abomination it is today. Perfectly reasonable for anyone who's never cracked open a biology textbook, but as I mentioned in the beginning...
How long have you practiced as a nurse? I'm just curious.
Since 2009.
So you, as a nurse who has studied human anatomy and biology, are claiming that the entirety of human civilization can arise from a single incestuous breeding pair.
Yes.
She's a nurse, she says she's a nurse.
Okay, so just to I want to make sure I'm getting you perfectly clear. And I'm not trying to strawman you. I'm just repeating what you said the way I understand. 6,000-ish years ago, two people created human civilization. And back then, there were no, germs or diseases or incest problems that would.
Didn't exist. I said
DNA
errors.
The problems that you would have, the problems that you would have with incest didn't exist then, and people could live extremely long then, and not now. Am I getting it right?
Okay, not quite. I said that the DNA errors that are present in our DNA code did not exist in Adam and Eve because they were created directly by God himself, perfect. So when they fell, their DNA was still as close to perfect as it could be, with probably the exception of the curse, but it just started and the curse has been accelerating as time has progressed. That is why, we see a slight jump in lifespan with the advent of modern medicine, but it's still going south. It's still going downward.
The lesson I'm learning here is that if you're handcrafted by God, you have perfect DNA, which means you can fuck your sister without producing sloth from the Goonies. But unfortunately, the rest of us schlubs are under an accelerated curse which de-evolved our DNA. Again, and I will reference this several times, the scariest part of this conversation is, she's a nurse, she says she's a nurse. Nurse Ack then explained how much better her life got after embracing God, which, for the sake of time, I'll spare you the meandering 30-minute sob story and accompanying proselytization, but the crux of the argument was, God in my life equals good, which led to my rebuttal.
What you had just said was, my life was better because I, started believing in God. Right. That's great. What do you say to somebody like me whose life got better once they stopped believing in God?
I say that
because we had similar experiences, and what we're both. All right, go ahead.
I say that you value the absence of God and what comes with that more so than you value what is good. So that's why you prefer it.
I value the absence of God more than I value what is good, implying that the presence of God is necessarily good and I prefer things that are bad. I suppose she's right. I prefer universal health care, while Nurse Ack here proudly declares that, as a nurse, if required to perform a life-saving abortion to a patient that needed one, she would refuse. So I guess when it comes to declaring what's good versus what's bad,
I'm fuzzy on the whole good-bad thing. What do you mean bad?
I'm saying that your options are either God or not God. You're like, I was happier without God. So that tells me everything I need to know about you.
Really? I tell you I'm an atheist, and that tells you everything you need to know about me? Do go on.
Tells me you love the world, you love your flesh, you're prideful, you think of yourself as God, you want to be in charge, you want to make all the decisions.
None of those
you don't want to
things are
submit.
true.
Wow. Telling you I'm an atheist means all of those things? Let's take them one by one, shall we? Number 1.
You love the world?
Rongo Dongo, my dear nurse, try again. I live here, so I respect the idea of taking good care of the place while we're here, but that's not love, that's a sense of duty and responsibility borne by empathy. The human condition. It would be no different than a goldfish saying, man, I love this glass bowl. No, I just happen to be here on this planet because of circumstances beyond my control and I'm making the best of it. Number 2.
You love your flesh?
Well, to be fair, have you seen my flesh? You'd love it too. But I'm not sure I understand your meaning, as I do take care of myself and don't practice self-harm like some of your more zealous members. But I think self-love and self-care is important for anyone's self-esteem. Spoiler alert, we never got to the bottom of what Nurse Ack meant by loving my flesh, so I'll just bury this bone in the backyard. Number 3.
You're prideful?
You know what? Guilty as charged. But that has nothing to do with atheism and everything to do with being a triple threat druidic bard who can sing, dance, and drink you under the table. If that's not something to be proud of, I don't know what is. Number 4.
You think of yourself as God?
What's funny is, because of Nurse Ack's antics, the prophecy I made several months ago came true, allowing me to ascend from a humble bard to
the God of Whimsy.
But I don't make a big deal out of it because even though I am a literal god, the important point Nurse Ack here is missing is, by definition, atheists don't believe in any gods. So the idea that we think of ourselves as gods is simply ludicrous. There are no gods, least of all us mere mortals who have decided we don't need a Bronze Age barbarian warlord dictating our morals. Numbers 5 through 7.
You want to be in charge, you want to make all the decisions.
None of
you
those
don't want to
things are
submit.
Quite simply, we are all in charge of our own lives, whether we want to be or not, some more than others depending on certain circumstances. So whether or not I want to be in charge of my life is irrelevant because at the end of the day, it's me who has to pay the bills, brush my teeth, and live my life. So yes, I'd prefer to be in charge of those decisions, whereas you have apparently abdicated your choices and lifestyle to a god that happily destroys its own creation via flood. And instead of looking on this as a deplorable act of genocide, you praise it as an act of piety, all while claiming that you know everything you need to know about me simply by my atheist label. Needless to say, I was nonplussed, and I decided to give the nurse a taste of her own medicine.
What would it say to you if I said, oh, you're a Christian? That tells me everything I need to know. You worship blood magic. You sacrifice children. You love the idea of torture. You want to rape people and marry people that you rape for 50 shekels. You want to buy slaves from the heathens around you. You want to buy slaves from the Jews around you. What does that tell you about what I think about you when you tell me you're just a Christian?
Well, you already say those things to me, and so does everyone else that you run around with. They all say that stuff to me.
Because I'm telling you what you're telling me about me when I tell you I'm an atheist. You add all this extra shit. And then when I show you what the extra shit looks like on the other side of the mirror, you don't fucking like it, do you?
No, I don't. I mean, what do you want me to like about it?
Exactly.
What are
Because
you
you're being
like? I'm just curious.
Because I'm showing you what you do.
No, you're showing me how you respond to what I'm telling you.
You tell people, if you're an atheist, like you just said, this is all I need to know about you. And I just spelled it exactly backwards to you in the Christian version. And you said, well, you know, I don't like that. Yeah, because you're getting prejudiced against by somebody who's judging you on your fucking label. Doesn't feel good, does it?
I mean,
highlighting your hypocrisy. Just
you
plain
guys
and
do
simple.
this to me every day. I'm not, and I don't go home and cry about it. I just keep talking. Like, I believe what I'm saying, so I just keep saying it.
So
you can believe
you
whatever
admit
you
you
want
engage
about
in
me. It doesn't make
prejudice
it
and
true.
hypocrisy.
You can believe whatever you want about me. It doesn't make it true.
Well, you are a hypocrite.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. You're not exactly showing me I'm wrong by your behavior.
My behavior. As I just explained, I'm purposely modeling my behavior after Nurse acts, and it turns out she doesn't like it when someone acts towards her the way she acts towards others. You're so close to getting it, Nurse Ack, but your faith forbids you to realize your hypocrisy. Anyways, the conversation then turned to why an all-loving, just, and merciful God would drown his own creation.
So that's kind of a base misunderstanding of the purpose of the flood. It wasn't to wipe out all the evil people. It was to eliminate what the angels had created in Genesis 6, where it said that they came in unto women and made hybrids. And Nephilim. And that kind of overtook everything. And hold on. And so then the purpose of saving Noah, setting him aside, wasn't because sin was going to go away. It was because he was protecting the line of the Messiah, of Jesus Christ, so that he could still be born and save all of us. So he set aside the line of Christ at the absolute last possible minute when there was only one man left.
So God had to wipe out the angel-human Nephilim hybrids in order to bring about the bloodline of the Messiah. You know, I have a feeling that if someone were to tell me that their plan to save the world was to drown everyone in it in order to flush out those naughty angel offspring and bring about the bloodline that would lead to an eventual savior, I'd be calling them men with the snug jackets and padded rooms. But for people like Nurse Ack, that's exactly the kind of hero she loves to worship. But now, alas, the discussion truly begins to fall apart as the other listeners in the room start to lose their patience with Nurse Ack's assertions, and we delve into a most horrifying subject.
Zombie plants.
I'm just a mean green mother from outer space, and I'm bad.
So the other people that branched off don't matter. Like,
if you're going to ask him if he knows how family trees work, when you just told us that civilization was spawned from a single incestuous breeding pair that lived a lot longer back then because the DNA was different and all that shit.
Oh, we need a citation.
Oh, this is bad. This is bad. This is really bad.
I need a citation on that. To go any farther, we'd need a citation.
I know it's in the Bible, but tell me why the Bible needs to be followed when you consider
the fact that... follow anything?
Do not interrupt a bard mid-sentence.
Wait, when I say when you consider, at what point do you think it's appropriate to start talking?
See? Told you.
Okay, so if you consider the fact that we need an accretion disk that takes about 4 billion years to form, and we know how that happened, and we know, oh, Jesus Christ, how do I know that? Through cosmology.
Oh,
through
okay.
God's knowledge.
That's an
Yeah.
exact science, isn't it?
Oh,
Well, you know
my
what it is?
God.
Because
Yes.
if you want to compare cosmology to what your book says, you've got plants growing on day 3 and sunlight appearing on day 4. So please square that circle for me.
Spoiler alert, she does not square that circle.
I mean, do plants die overnight?
They can if there's no sun.
Oh,
You
in
know,
one
the
night? Really?
a whole negative 270
Wait, so hang on.
In
So
one
when you're
night?
based on hang on, you offered no answer
So at
other
night, all the
than
plants
hang on.
die and they just come back to life in the morning? I didn't
So
know
your
that.
answer
This
your
is so
answer
cool.
was
I'm
do they die? Your answer was do they die in one night, and you offered nothing else, which means me to believe that you think that the earth was formed in 7 actual days and God raised plants on earth all over the earth in the middle of the night on day 3 and then gave birth to the sun on day 4. Am I wrong in assuming that's what you meant?
Well, God is light, so he didn't need the sun when they were in his
Yes
presence.
or no? Am I wrong in assuming that's what you meant?
God is light. That's
So,
why he said,
yes.
let there be light first, because it's the light.
And where did the light come from? Because it sure as fuck wasn't our sun.
From him.
From him. So God was the light of the universe until he could supply his own light through the sunlight. Is that what you're claiming?
Correct.
Okay. What evidence do you have for any of this? Because literally every piece of evidence we have in cosmology and anthropology suggests that that is wrong.
I don't care what men say. I value what God says, and God said he did it that way.
Well, there you have it. All evidence to the contrary notwithstanding, if God says he raised plants on the earth before there was sunlight, then that's the way it happened. Even though any rational person can tell you that plants can't survive without sunlight. And before you jump on the Nurse Act bandwagon and declare that any plant could survive overnight without sunlight, keep in mind that without the sun, the Earth's atmosphere, magnetosphere, and every other factor in making this planet habitable, the plants that God allegedly raised on day 3 would be subjected to a temperature of negative 270 degrees Celsius, which, if you're in America, is a temperature that's real fucking cold. Colder than a black steer's took us on a moonless prairie night. And no plant or animal could survive it. But according to our beloved Nurse Ack, God made plants that allowed them to survive the cold dark of space because, hey, he's the light.
You don't have evidence. You just have the words of men making claims, same as me.
And you just have the words of men making claims in an ancient tome from barbaric Bronze Age barbarian savage fuckwits in the desert who carved a bloody swath and had a fetish for fucking foreskins. And you think that's a better authority than the fucking telescopes that we put in outer space.
Well, actually, the Bible has proven itself to be the word of God.
Honestly, there is no evidence, no matter how compelling, that will turn a theist towards reason because their holy book says different. All evidence to the contrary be damned. And what conversation with a Christian would be complete without a little slavery apology?
If he had outlawed what you're calling slavery, men like what I just described would have no recourse for gaining food and board. Because that was how it worked.
Ah, yes. You see, God can command you to abstain from shellfish and mixed fabrics, but he's just straight up powerless to demand that you simply can't own slaves. Pity that your God can take such care in crafting a moral foundation that punishes people for being gay, but not for owning another person as property. It's not my problem that you're defending this
puny God.
I had to cut a lot of this conversation down for the sake of time and resources because parsing the words of an absolute maniac batshit nutjob takes a lot out of your favorite part.
Is he a nutcase?
Sadly, I had to cut out the part where I told Nurse Ack to shut her fucking pie hole because she just wouldn't shut the hell up while I was doing some quick administrative stuff as the host of our Twitter space where technical glitches, Nazis, and Russian bots are now a feature, not a bug. But to me, it's still worth mentioning, so minus any context, here's me telling Nurse Ack to shut her dumb fucking mouth.
This would have been done if you would have shut your fucking pie hole when I said to, because it would have taken 4 seconds.
Still makes me chuckle. I will leave you with this final thought from Nurse Ack's daughter, Baby Ack, who's an anti-vaxxer, slavery-endorsing, MAGA-loving traitor to our country. Take it away, Baby Ack.
Here comes a new challenger!
I can't imagine how you would edit this video for your silly YouTube channel to not look like a total jerk, but good luck with that.
Way ahead of you, sweetheart. Your mom just told me we're all the product of divine incest, UV rays accelerated a curse from God, and this same God just couldn't do a darn thing to stop people from owning slaves. All while she uses the Bible to justify withholding reproductive care from pregnant mothers and equating being gay with murder. It's not me who has to worry about looking like a jerk here, Dumplin'. And like I mentioned before, the scariest part of all of this is... she's a nurse, she says she's a nurse. I do hope you enjoyed this spooktacular festival of frights, knowing that your healthcare, indeed your very life, could one day be in the hands of a nurse who believes that slavery, genocide, and eternal hellfire is justified if God says so. Try not to let it raise your blood pressure, especially if Nurse Ack is the one taking it. She'll probably think you have demons in your blood and you need to repent about it. Don't swallow the holy water. For more mischievous mayhem, hollowed-out hellions, and harbingers of hellfire, I invite you to my Patreon page at patreon.com/KorakTheBard, where things get even spookier. In the meantime, special thanks to my patrons who are still 6 feet above ground. This is your favorite bard, Korak the Bard, singing off with... children come from every age to believe in something strange. Incest, flood, and Nephilim, blood magic, and the curse of men. These are Christians, these are Christians. Paint your door with blood at night. These are Christians, everybody drink the blood. Your God will make you die of fright. In your home, God is there, under the stairs to make you scared. Jesus is hiding under your bed to make sure your prayers are read. He won't drown the world again, for he needs the souls of men. These are Christians, these are Christians, 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 Christians. In this tome we can see biblical Christianity.